Spring is in full force in a good part of the country. We've got still some risks for fire over the next 24 or so hours in parts of the Northeast where it's going to be warm and just utterly bone dry. We also have snow and melting snows going on in the northern Rockies, which has led to various watches and warnings and flood watches. So we'll talk about that, and we'll see how high we can get temperature-wise over the next 3 days. And we'll look at the weekend. All of that tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, in full spring mode now. So it's topsoil, sand, and mulch to make sure that your home looks spectacular on the outside. Or maybe it's your business. You own a building or something, and you want your business to look great on the outside. And if you're a landscaper and you need it in volume, they got it. 631-756-1125. The best prices anywhere. The website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
Yes, and also brought to you by Tempest. To get the revolutionary Tempest weather station and join the fastest growing observing network on the planet. The link will be up on the chat board momentarily, but it's also in the descriptor to this video, and they got all sorts of weather merchandise. You can support our channel by picking up a few knickknacks if you like, or get a Tempest weather station. So anyway, head over there, folks. I'll put the link up in just a second. And a crisp, business-like good evening to you, Mr. Rayo.
And here's some late-breaking news. The White House...
Wait. This just in. You have to always do a this just in.
This just in. Can I put my finger up to my fingers up to my ear?
You have to cup your hand over your headset and go this, and deepen your voice. You want to get a booming, baritone. This just in.
Like Ted Baxter.
Exactly.
This just in. White House is proposing even cutting water allotments from the Colorado River, proposing evenly cutting water allotments from the Colorado River as the river shrinks. The Biden administration is getting ready to impose for the first time reduction in water supply to the various states served by the Colorado River. Okay. And there you go.
Well, that's sort of related, although anyway,
I didn't mean it to sound like it was a political statement. I mean, it is.
It'll come off as a political statement, but go on.
No, but I'm just saying that, apparently the situation out west, or at least with the Colorado River, and Ron and I saw it for ourselves back in May of last year, but it's become so dire now that they're going to have to, even up, who gets what in terms of the leftover residual moisture from the Colorado.
Well, they do have tons of snow melt to get through. Maggie P, who's on the chat board tonight, and she actually lives in Colorado, says that's because none of the states can agree on a plan. So just like Sister Charles Edwards would do, when you can't agree on a plan, she institutes a plan of her own.
The thing that makes it interesting,
though.
Yes. But the thing that makes it interesting to me is, I said, well, gee, Colorado and Wyoming and, those states, they had so little water or not all that much in terms of snowfall. But I see that the area that is in extreme or severe drought is right next door in Kansas and Nebraska. They're suffering. Colorado, a little bit of dry weather.
They had a pretty gangbusters here in the western part of the state of Colorado. And they also had a fairly gangbusters year snow-wise in Montana and Wyoming. Just got to wait for all that snow to melt. We'll see where the river goes. I mean, the snow melt is occurring now. And, related to that, because I'm not used to seeing this, but these days, they put up advisories for, water droplet advisories and dew advisories and so on. But in all seriousness, I guess this makes a little bit more sense. Because when we look at that fantastic watches and warnings map, for example, I'll put up, I'm going to punch up this, there's two shades of green that are showing up. So there's a slightly darker shade of green in northeastern Montana. So let's take a look and see what that's about. And that is, these are flood warnings and advisories. The Beaver Creek is at major flood stage. The Poplar Creek, minor flood stage. And the Milk River, Joe, ice jams are in progress. And this is all due to the light green. So those are flood warnings and flood advisories in that bright green, okay? The lighter green is a regular plain old flood advisory. And I'm just reading here really quick. Turn around, don't drown when encountering flooded roads. It's probably a good piece of advice, I would guess. This is all from snowmelt. Flood advisories for snowmelt remains in effect until 9:45 a.m. Mountain Standard Time on Thursday. So that's what they're dealing with up here in western Wyoming, in the southern half of Idaho, the southeastern part of Oregon, southern Montana, northeastern Montana. And while all this is going on, by the way, we have a bunch of counties in Montana with winter storm warnings up. And I'll just take a little sample of that, and we will see what they're talking about here. So they also have flood warnings up for snowmelt, but the winter storm warnings are up for heavy snow, expected total accumulations of 6 to 12, with 1 to 2 feet expected over the Tobacco Root Mountains. Never knew there was such a place as the Tobacco.
I never knew that either.
Yes. So this was
Tobacco Root Mountains.
Yes.
Ooh.
So this is also for Elkhorn, Boulder, and Boulder Mountains. This is Montana now. Right, I just want to make sure. Yeah, this is out of Great Falls. The Upper Blackfoot and McDonald Pass, the Southern Rocky Mountain Front, the Gallatin and Madison County Mountains, and the Centennial Mountains. And that's from 6 p.m. Wednesday until midnight Thursday night. So a little bit on the busy side in the west. But the point is, there's a lot of snow melt that has to happen yet in the western part of the U.S. So they'll probably get a better sense of where all these rivers are in the next couple of weeks as all that that snow starts to melt away. We've got avalanche warnings up in the northern part of Utah. Avalanche warning in effect for the mountains and foothills of northern Utah, it says, Joe. Warning is issued when dangerous avalanche conditions currently exist. Warm temperatures and the intense sun will create widespread areas of unstable wet snow, natural and humid triggered Cornice Falls and wet avalanche. What's a Cornice Falls? I have no idea.
No clue.
And wet avalanches are certain. So they use the word certain. So that's a strong word. So that's going on over there. You got all sorts of flood watches up in Nevada. You've got various wind advisors. Meanwhile, it was pretty breezy today. I was looking at some of the wind observations and winds gusting over 30 miles an hour at times from the northwest with those fabulous dew points down in the low 20s. And temperatures up into the 70s, it makes for relative humidities that were in the teens. So ripe for the possibility of some brush fires, although I haven't seen anything regarding whether there were any brush fires. I don't know if you heard about anything. They still got the red flag warning up for the Hudson Valley, for Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, northeastern New York. And then they got a whole slew of counties going down into Delaware and Maryland. And that includes all of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, the rest of New York, much of New Hampshire and Vermont, where it's not a red flag warning, but sort of a special weather statement. Watch out for the possibility that there could be some brush fires. Also, in and around the Great Lakes, we got the same problem too. With southern Wisconsin, northeastern Illinois, northern Indiana, northwest Ohio. Issues from that standpoint, and they're not going to go away. It'll still be kind of breezy tomorrow, and you're probably going to still have dew points in the 20s and to near 30, and temperatures well up into the 70s. So you put that with a 20 to 30 mile an hour wind, and you could conceivably have problems.
And it looks like, Joe, the next few days here in the tri-state area, temperatures will continue continue to climb. In fact, we may be more like July as opposed to April, and temperature-wise, by the time we get to Thursday. And I mean, my goodness, I'm thinking here in the lower Hudson Valley on Friday, temperatures of 85 to, yes, believe it or not, folks, maybe getting close to 90 by
Well,
the time we get to Friday afternoon late
I've
in
been
some spots.
I've been a proponent of that for a couple of days now. The temperatures today actually busted a bit to the upside, which is not a surprise this time of year. It's almost always happens when we get these days like this, where you get mostly sunny skies for most of the day, and you're already you're not in any kind of cold air mass, so there's nothing really to stop the temperatures from going up. They're not going to go down that much at night, especially later in the week. So your launching pads are all set. Yeah, I certainly think you could see. Wouldn't be surprised you see Newark go to 90. I wouldn't be surprised if you see maybe Philadelphia go to 90, and who knows? Maybe you could get New York City. Some of the New York City stations may get close to 90, and in the Valley Hudson too.
It's all going to be an artifact, by the way, of the winds, which in all likelihood are going to be mostly out of a westerly direction. This is going to kill any kind of a sea breeze of significance. Even if you live along the Jersey Shore or the immediate south shore of Long Island, expect a very warm day when we get to the end of the week on Friday, especially with those westerly breezes, again, pushing temperatures way up into the 80s. Again, maybe in the inland spots close to or hitting 90. And even at the shoreline, you're literally going to have your tootsies in the water to get any kind of significant cool down. Because again, it looks like a very warm, if not downright hot day on Friday. And then there's what looks to be a backdoor front, which appears headed for the tri-state area on Saturday, dropping southward, cooling things off during the day on Saturday.
A little.
And then, a little. But
it's pretty shallow.
Yeah. Yeah. And, by the time we get to Sunday or Monday of next week, well, I think by Monday, we're going to be back in the 60s. And on Sunday, probably somewhere near 70 degrees, certainly a lot cooler. I mean, my goodness, if we're talking about near 90 on Friday, and we're talking about on Sunday around 70, that's a 20-degree drop in temperature. Still, it's above normal, way above normal for this time of the year. But again, a significant cool down over what we're anticipating here by week's end.
I'm trying to load the satellite loop, a new loop, and there we go. I don't know why the page jumped that way. David Schwartz on the chat board, Joe, pointing out that islip hit a new record high today on Long Island. I did notice, by the way, the sea breeze actually, which actually somewhat surprised me today because of the fact that there was a pretty decent gradient developing, but the sea breeze did kick in places like West Hampton, at Zabriskie Airport. So right along the immediate south shore, the winds were all southwest and temperatures were about 10 degrees lower. Now, that's not going to stop the high temperatures. You could still easily make it up into the 80s. It's just that it's kind of hard to keep the sea breeze at bay. So maybe the sea breeze comes in, I don't know, around 2 or 3 o'clock and doesn't make it that far inland. So you get those high temperatures those high temperatures get reached, and then, mid to late afternoon, you get a little bit of a sea breeze to knock the temperatures back down. You look at the satellite loop here. I'm going to try to see if I could add a couple of extra frames to it. But again, a weather system that is moving through the area between New Brunswick, the Gulf of St. Lawrence, the low in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. You got these weak weather front that moved up offshore there and off the coast of northern New England, and you see those batches of high clouds, little spokes rotating around the upper feature. So you're getting this northwest flow here, and that is why you see that little streak of cloud cover, or at least there was a streak of cloud cover there late in the afternoon. Looks like some missing frames here with those white flashes. So, but there you go. Now you got to see the clouds moving. Meanwhile, gorgeous day here. Made it up into the 70s today. here in northeast Georgia with not a cloud in the sky. It was sunshine from start to finish. Much of the country is actually enjoying some pretty nice weather. You see some moisture that's coming into the northwest. You also see some moisture and some thunderstorms tonight along parts of the Gulf Coast. And this was supposed to be the so-called subtropical storm that was going to form, but as we said yesterday, not exactly happening. So we'll just leave.
Wah, wah.
Yeah, exactly. Da 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 da. Wah.
Well, no. Boom, 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 boom.
Wow. Well, by the way, welcome tonight to everybody on the chat board. Welcome to those of you watching in the background. I know you're all lurking about on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you can watch the Joe and Joe Weather Show every day, Monday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m., Sundays at 11 a.m., Fridays and Saturdays we're off, unless the apocalypse is occurring, in which case we will pop on and, be part of it.
I saw something and you probably have it in your archives. I saw something that made it look like the apocalypse was coming. This goes back, I'm thinking about this now, 5 years ago. There was some kind of they remember back at FiOS, one occasion they would have an alarm go off, which meant that everybody in the building had to leave and go outside. And on this one particular occasion, when the alarm went off, what happened was there was a severe thunderstorm that was rolling through Port Chester, where we were located, or Rye Brook in Lower Westchester. And so you and I were outside, and we were doing kind of a miniature Joe and Joe, or a live show using your phone, I guess, outside. And every so often you see lightning flashing, thunder crashing, heavy rain. Everybody was outside watching all this, and it was the blowing and everything else. It did look like kind of an apocalypse situation. And here we are, here we are in a boom.
And of course,
I guess if there was.
No, I was going to say, and of course, did we not get in trouble because we didn't inform a certain person who thought that somehow it wasn't enough that we told them at the newsroom meeting that there was going to be severe weather around, but they actually wanted, I'm thinking back to this now. So we're doing 3 channels at the same time. And,
right.
and it's all happening right around news time, which made it even more problematic. So somehow we're supposed to get all this stuff on the air before it happens, and as the warnings are coming out, and at the same time we're supposed to also let them know that what we told them like half an hour before was going to happen is happening. That was just mind-boggling to me, that whole. And then wasn't there the one time, Joe, when the something went wrong with the fire alarm and it went off, and it went off and they couldn't shut it off?
Right.
Do you remember? I think
Yep.
It kept on and on and on. It was absolute torture. God.
I remember that editorial meeting. I mean, I was the one who had to do, it always started out, all right, before we get on with the news, here's Joe to tell us what's going to happen to the weather. And I said, well, it's going to be a major outbreak of severe weather, quite possibly in the next 1 to 2 hours. And there are already watches up, and there could be some warnings and everything else. And after I went through my whole spiel, the person who was in charge at the time was just looking like at a piece of paper on her desk and saying, all right, Joe, thank you very much. And I assume that was the signal that, okay, I done my thing. I'm gone. Now it's time for me to go. And then like an hour and a half later, as I mentioned, there we were outside, lightning and thunder and rain and wind or whatever. And we were called in by the person in charge saying, why didn't anybody tell me about this? And like, I looked at you, you looked at me. Addison Green, who was also with us at the time, Addison was just like looking and shaking his head like, what the hell? What's going on?
I know.
And I'd actually pull him aside. I said, because Addison at that time really was, he had been in the business for a year or two. We, on the other hand, had gone through stuff like this many times in our life, in our broadcasting career. So I just to pull him over and I said, just just roll with the punches. It's nothing. You're going to be experiencing a lot of this in your broadcasting career, and I'm sure he will. But that moment like stands out in my memory, with the severe weather and everything's going to pieces. And even though we tried warning the powers that be, we still got blamed for it in the end. All right,
Yeah, I still
rant
haven't.
over.
I still haven't forgiven Brian Fitzgerald. Not that it would have mattered anyway, but when you took a day off, and it was you were taking a day off. There was going to be severe weather. I was doing 3 channels all at the same time, 3 different zones. And Brian says to me, they never you never have severe weather in all the zones at all at the same time. Well, never is okay. We not only had that, we had tornado warnings in 3 zones all at the same time. I don't know, and it was I don't know how I got through that night, but I did. I managed it somehow, and this is why I don't do. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I ain't doing it again. My days of working on TV, not that they'll have me, but my days of working TV are over. So anyway, there's some.
It all also has to do with age. And you and I were talking off air about something that was really bugging me today. And I said to Renata, I said, I'm going to be, and I'll mention it on the air. In a few months, I'm going to be 67 years old. And I said, you know what? I said, I've been dealing with stuff like this for most of my adult life. And, maybe this is something that somebody in their 20s or 30s needs to deal with. But I don't have to deal with this anymore if I don't want it. And,
I don't want it. So I ain't dealing with it.
And I don't want it. I don't want it. My cardiologist, a wonderful doctor by the name of Dr. Renee, he's from Jamaica. And every time I'd see him, he'd always say the same thing. Mr. Rayo, I don't understand why are you so stressed out? Why are you so? And I said, you don't know the half of it, Doc. I mean, you want high blood pressure? Get into television, get into broadcasting, because you have no idea what goes on sometimes behind the scenes. Anyway,
Anyhow,
back to you.
There's some showers in upstate New York. I don't know how much of this is reaching the ground around Syracuse and to the east of Albany. There's some stuff on the radar here. There's been stuff aloft all day long up to the north. That's some of these little spokes that are moving down in that northwest flow. There's even a couple of what looks like maybe a couple of very, very light sprinkles in and around the Boston area. I don't even know that any of that is actually reaching the ground. This is reaching the ground along the coast of Louisiana. We've got some, heavy downpours and some thunderstorms. Florida somehow caught a break today. Most of the showers that were around were either offshore or at least for a little while up in northeast Florida, but they've kind of thinned out, so that's good. And earlier today it was busy in the northwest, but that's also calmed down a bit, at least for now. These waves of moisture that are coming in there. The Storm Prediction Center, as we take a look at the risk for severe weather, because the folks at SPC have been working so very hard in the last couple of weeks, getting a bit of a break. No severe weather is forecast tonight, so that's good. Now we'll go to tomorrow, Wednesday into Thursday, and we do have a small area of marginal risk along the coast of southeast Louisiana, the coast of Mississippi, the coast of Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle, just right along the immediate coast there. Otherwise, it's just general thunderstorms there and general thunderstorms in the Rockies and Northern Plains. Then we move on to day 3, which is this is Thursday into Friday, and we've got a marginal risk in the Florida Panhandle, southwestern Georgia, southeastern Alabama. So that's good. We don't have any slight risks or enhanced risk. In the long range on day 4, we do have a 15% area that's showing up in Kansas and in eastern Kansas and eastern Oklahoma, north and small portion of north central Texas there, where 15% equates to a slight risk potential. So nothing major in severe weather land. And I think predictability too low on day 5, day 6, day 7, potential too low on day 7. That's Monday into Tuesday. And day 8, which is to predictability too low. Day 6 is Sunday into Monday. That's when we've got a weather front that's going to be moving through the east to northeast. and we're going to take a look at that in a moment. Meanwhile, again, it's back end loaded with the rainfall that you're seeing indicated for the Northeast, a quarter to a half an inch. So that's going to come with the next weather front, which is probably Sunday night sometime. A little bit heavier precip along the Gulf Coast and down to Florida. A heavier concentration in southeast Louisiana and in southeast Florida of 2 to maybe 4 inches or more of rain there. And right along the coast of the Pacific Northwest, some heavier precip further inland in some of the mountain ranges. Not a whole lot in the snow department through Friday, 8 p.m. You can see where you've got some areas in Montana where we've got those winter storm warnings, where we've got some areas showing up with maybe up to a foot in some of the higher mountain ranges, and also up in the Cascades, 6, 10, 11, no big heavy prints there. And we don't have any warnings or advisories up because the criteria is just, I think they got to get at least 18 for them to put a winter weather advisory up in some of the mountain ranges in California. So I didn't notice too much changing today in terms of what the models were showing, Joe. I don't know if you have a different opinion, but we've been kind of, we're kind of in this ridge. We are in this, getting into this ridge position, which is setting up the warmer temperatures. I think that's a given. We do get a change next week. This pattern is going to flip away, and I'll show you how it looks on the upper air. Let me just roll this back. And there's that system I was talking about that's in southeastern Labrador toward Newfoundland, and you get these little short waves that move on through. That was Sunday, and now we're into Tuesday. There's another little short wave that went by today, so we're still in this northwest flow. You've got this upper low sitting over Louisiana. There's an upper high that's bananaed, sort of a banana-shaped ridge that's over the top of that, and that's into the eastern states for the rest of this week. And then finally, some western energy gets to move eastward, and that will allow a cold front to come through here probably, I don't know, Sunday night. Maybe there might even be a second front that comes through after that. But next week's going to be a bit different than this week because of the fact that we're going to lose that ridge. So we should see, as you said, temperatures are going to get back down at least to normal for a few days.
Yes, absolutely. And people will probably complain. Those people who love summertime weather, they'll say, "What is this all of a sudden? It's so lovely out there. Now it's only 65." You can't please everybody in this business.
No, you can't. Now, I'm wondering, that's a nice little upper low that comes in on Sunday. There's a surface low that moves out of Colorado. We're just going to back it up here. You see there's still western energy there, but it can't move east with all the, with this upper low in the Gulf Coast and the ridge that's sandwiched in between that and the rest of the flow that's up in Canada. Something finally breaks through on Friday into the plains. I'm just wondering whether there might be, the GFS actually rips up a pretty decent line of thunderstorms late Sunday afternoon and evening in eastern Ohio and western and central PA. They kind of weaken because of the timing. This is at 2 a.m. Monday morning as the front comes through, but I suppose there could be a shower or thunderstorm Sunday night when that front goes by. But this might be, they have predictability too low for Sunday. I wonder whether we may see a marginal risk or maybe even a small slight risk area there for eastern Ohio, western Pennsylvania, southwestern New York, later Sunday afternoon into Sunday evening. But then after that, it's northwest flow, and that's snow that you see over the Great Lakes. So there is some cooler air that comes in. And I'm thinking, a good chunk of next week, we may see temperatures that'll be closer to average or maybe even a little bit below average from day to day. So it'll be a complete opposite of what we have this time around.
So, as we said yesterday or last night, enjoy these next several days coming up tomorrow and on into Thursday and Friday. It's going to be very warm, as I said, almost like July by the end of the week, because after a backdoor weather front passes on through on Saturday, the temperatures are slowly but surely going to decline.
Yes. Oh, Joe, we have 2 super chat hits. Would you like to do those?
Well, let me just, I see Leon Probitsky with Peter Potamus that's saying, get gup. I don't know what that means. And we also have Chuck Cardillo. You both are doing very well considering the pattern right now is rather boring. Appreciate all you do. Thank you so much, Chuck, and Leon, too.
Oh, and we just had Steve LaPointe hitting the tip jar, which is nice. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, actually, usually after the winter, especially a challenging winter where we've had, which this one most of the time wasn't, because of the lack of storms in the east. But when we have a challenging winter with a lot of storms in the east, when we get to the end of March and the beginning of April, I kind of like this period where things just sort of calm down and we can, catch our breath for a little while. Yeah, that certainly works for me.
It sure does for me as well. And I can remember you and I, after a boring winter, feeling very depressed at the winter that we had just gone through and the winter that we had just lost. But quite frankly, after all of these years, I appreciate a winter like this. But I also have been saying, and I want all of you to remember this, is that when we have winters like this, at least here in the immediate tri-state area, the Northeast, usually the following winter, Mother Nature comes back and pretty much cleans our clock, so to speak. So next winter, I am absolutely confident that we're going to see a lot more in the way of cold and a lot more in the way of snow. And Frank Riccio has just hit the chat board with Super Chat. Thank you very much, Frank.
He bangs the tip jar. Thanks, Frank. Most appreciated. Okay, let's do a little bit of Brittle Jeopardy and challenge everybody's minds tonight. We're doing average low temperatures in April. Are you ready, Mr. Rayo?
Yes.
Okay, we shall begin we're going to begin on the West Coast, okay? In beautiful downtown Burbank. Trish, before I do that, Trish Sparaccio hitting Super Chat also. Thank you, Trish. Most appreciated. Thank you for hitting the tip jar. So our first city tonight, Joe, is Los Angeles. Los Angeles. Yes, Los Angeles. The average low temperature for the month of April in L.A.
I'm going to say 68.
You're going to say 68. You did say 68. So it's...
Yes, I did.
Yes. Rick B is at 53. Craig Karlberg is at 52. Frank Riccio's at 58. Maggie P's at 50. If you're in the 60s, you're too high. 56 really? For Paul Roman. 50. There it is. Michael Azara, 55 double nickels. Which I was told I was no longer allowed to say when I worked at WPIX TV because of certain gas bags whose head was up the rear end of the general manager complained. But we won't discuss that tonight.
I'm not saying anything.
No, look, you know what? I don't care anymore. Honestly, I don't care. I really don't. Yes. So, what are they going to do, Joe? Call me?
When Johnny Carson was getting ready to retire, he told his executive producer, Peter LaSalle, let me know when it's time. Let me know when you believe it's time for me to leave and go off television. Because he used as examples George Burns and Bob Hope, guys who, in Johnny's opinion, stayed too long at the fair. And when you stay too long at the fair, you're only hurting yourselves. And, finally, LaSalle and Carson both agreed it was time to go in 1992, I believe. And that's when hard to believe, isn't it? 30 years ago, Johnny left and was never seen on television again. I will just say, Joe, that the gas bag that you're referring to or making reference to, he has stayed much too long at the fair.
Oh, yes.
much too long at the fair.
Well, usually the carnival barker is the last one to leave.
Yes.
Anyway,
Let's moving on to the next
move
city.
on. Rochester, New York. Just to be clear, not Rochester, Minnesota.
Just in Minnesota.
Okay, Rochester, New York. I'm sure there are other Rochesters in other states, but we're talking about Rochester, New York. Okay. Anyway.
Okay.
Well, we could stop right there because Craig Carlberg has already hit it at 37.
Wow.
So you didn't
He beat
even
me
get
to
it.
it. I was going to say 40. I was going to say 41, and that still would have been over according to Price's Right rules.
That's correct. Everybody's too high. 37 for Rochester. So let's move on. Let's move on to probably the most exciting weather city in the United States, Joe. I don't think there's any city that has more exciting weather than this particular city. Are you ready?
Yes.
San Diego, California.
Oh, San Diego.
San Diego. San Diego, where they put up dust watches.
How about 53?
How about 53? That is the incorrect answer. 54 says Maggie P. 58 says Ricky B. 52 says Frank Riccio. Anthony Sparacchio says 65. Now you're too high. Okay. 56 for Steve LaPointe. Okay. 58 for Michael Azara, but Michael McGuire split the difference between the two at 57, and he gets it. 57 for San Diego.
Yep.
Now here's a tough one. This is going to be a little bit difficult because of its location. It's halfway up the East Coast, roughly. It's also on the coast. It's also somewhat rural, but somewhat coastal. No, very much coastal. Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Well. How about 49?
Well, you and Craig Carlberg are on the same page, and oh so very close. So is Rick B. And Joe Z is on the other side at 51. So the correct answer is, a lot of you are dancing around this one. Anthony Sparacchio, 53. I'm just looking to see if anybody... Oh, there it is. Chuck Cardello. Ding, 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 a ling, a ling, a ling. Chuck Cardello gets it at 50. 50.
Wow.
50, half a dollar. Okay.
I would presume that Norfolk, Virginia, which is just right up the road from Virginia Beach, might be maybe a degree or two warmer. I would just suppose.
That could very well
anyway.
be. Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. You ready, folks?
There's a lot of hot air in Washington.
Well, that's quite true.
D.C. Yes. That's
quite true. Washington, D.C. for the month of April. Trish Sparacchio and Carol DiChiara and Joe Z. Joe, all you didn't give you a chance to guess, Joe. They all nailed it there. 48. 48.
I would have thought it was a lot.
Number of you dancing around that number. Well, you got to figure. You got to figure for the month of April, and usually the normals go up about 1 degree every 3 days or so. So you sort of look at the 15th of the month, tax day, which is 4 days away, and come up with a number. So if you have a general idea of where it is at April 1st and a general idea where it is at May 1st, you can sort of guess it. I usually when I can't figure, I always go back to New York's numbers, and then I see where the geography is, and I just play with it a little bit. So sometimes I get lucky and I hit it.
This is the chairman hitting super chat.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Scott. Here's a Norm Dvoskinism. What is the definition of capital punishment?
I don't know. Sitting through a congressional committee hearing.
No, has nothing to do anything whatsoever to do with
nothing to do
political.
with that. Okay, go ahead. Then what is the definition of capital punishment?
It's spending July and August in Washington, D.C. without an air conditioner.
Well, yeah, yes, it gets, there are hotter places and there are probably places that are more humid. But the real problem in that area near Chesapeake Bay and around the Potomac River is the air does not move.
Ooh.
There's never a breath of wind. There's hardly any sea breeze. There's nothing. The air just doesn't move. And that's, Long Island sometimes gets like that during the month of August, where it's just, you can cut the humidity with a knife and there's no breeze. That's difficult. That's difficult to take. It's hot in Florida in July and August, but at least especially if you're near the coast, there's almost always a wind. So it may be a hot wind and it may be a wet wind, but at least it's a wind.
Exactly.
Yes. So anyway.
So all things considered, that we didn't even have, at least from my count, we didn't go over 100 in terms of people who were watching us on this boring night tonight. We still managed to do pretty good in the like department with 62 thumbs up. And we want to thank again.
I bet you if we keep talking about nasty people that we don't like in our past, we could get that we could get that like button. We could get that like button to go up. One of the tough things about it, I guess it's tough at any job, is there are times, this is probably true in any job, but in at least in TV, one of the harder issues is it's hard to get another job. Okay, it's difficult to get another job. Just thinking back, there were a number of instances in my unusual up and down career where I would have loved to tell certain people what I really thought about them, and I did, and you didn't, because it would probably cost you your job, and then you wouldn't be able to get another one. There were only how many weather jobs were there that you could go after? The only way you there was a job opening is if somebody else got fired, and
right.
And most of the time they'll pull somebody out of town. But anyway, this is my version of writing a book. writing a book and putting all the memories in there. One of these days, I'm going to let go in a big way.
We had a sportscaster in New York a good number of years ago. In fact, now I'm thinking about it, maybe like 40 years ago. Bob Teague, who was at NBC Channel 4.
I remember Bob Teague,
and he wrote a tell-all book, or at least a book about what he thought about the business and some of the people he worked with, which is probably the reason why you never saw Bob Teague in this market again after that. But anyway, he did what a lot of us in this business would have wanted to do.
Well, I mean, look, I could not survive now at my age, and I think you could not survive at we're both close to the same age. But when I see some of the things that they put up on Facebook, I mean, just the dribble. It's just nonsense. I can understand. Okay, you have fun and all the rest of it, and I get that. But sometimes I see these show clips on the air, and they're doing things on the air on a daily basis that is just, I don't know. I just shake my head. I don't know that I could do that. Certainly, I could tell you right now, I'm not the type of person that does TikTok videos. I don't have TikTok. I don't have it on my phone. I wouldn't have it on my phone for obvious reasons. With where your data goes. So, but that's how I feel about it. But I just could not do the things that some of the people are doing on social media on an almost daily basis. It's like, how many times? After a while, you just run out of things to do.
I agree with you. In fact, I often say that if it were possible to go back in time 50 years and show people 50 years ago what was going to happen in our time today, by showing them newspaper articles or newspapers or television shows or just a whole bunch of things going on, they probably take me and throw me in the Hoosgow, or maybe the mental hospital and say, "Look what this guy is saying is going to happen in 50 years. It's crazy. He's nuts. He's going off the deep end or whatever." They wouldn't believe what is going on now, as opposed to, and that's why a lot of times I like to look back at old TV shows, like old TV game shows, or go on YouTube and look back at old shows and old news items and news clips, because the world of 50 years ago doesn't exist anymore, as opposed to where we are now. It's just absolutely crazy. But
Oh, the world that existed 10 years ago doesn't exist anymore. I mean, the pace of change, the pace of change is accelerated. It's mind-boggling how fast things have changed over shorter and shorter time spans.
right.
Yeah, I think you could make an argument that more has changed in the last 10 years than has changed in the prior 100. It just go, and I'll tell you right now, 5 years from now,
We're going to be looking back 5 years from now. We'll be looking at what we're going through right now as, quote, the good old days.
well, they'll probably be some AI bots of us. If we could create AI bots of both of us, so the bots could do the show for us while we just sit back and put our feet up. I don't know. It's sci-fi in a lot of ways. But I will tell you one thing that is reality, and the reality is that tonight, Joe, I made, for the first time, I've never actually made a pot roast. I've had pot roast, but usually I've had it when either someone else has made it, or there have been occasions when I've gone to Golden Corral and I'll have their pot roast there. But I actually made a pot roast, and it was very, very good. I was very happy with it, with a nice gravy with some red wine in it. It was delicious. Is Renata a pot roast person? I know you can't even make a ham sandwich, but that's
No, we've had pot roast from time to time. Yes.
Okay, good. She makes a good pot roast. Say yes.
Yes, she
Okay.
does.
She's on the board, or maybe she was on the board. Yeah, say yes. Good.
She was on the phone up until a few minutes ago, but
Oh, okay.
she's probably back now.
Yes. All right. So anyhow, I guess that pretty much covers it. So we will be back tomorrow night at our usual shopping time, right? 7:35
We will be
p.m.
here. Yes, indeed.
Thank you,
We
James
will.
Davison, for reminding everybody to smash the like button. Most appreciated. Yeah.
And thank you to all who hit the chat board tonight. The chairman, Chuck Cardillo, Trish Spiraccio, Leon Probitsky, Steve Lapointe, and Frank Riccio. Thank you so much for your contributions tonight.
Well, we got 80 likes, which is pretty good.
Yeah, pretty damn good.
Do you have any other people you want to bash to see if we can push it to 100?
No.
Okay, just checking. All right, very good. All right, folks, we'll see you tomorrow at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll probably, yes, Maggie P, we're probably going to see more record high temperatures in the coming days. And enjoy your evening. I'm out of wine. Also, I can't even get a glass of wine tonight because I used I had a little bit left of 2 bottles of wine, a Cabernet Sauvignon and a Merlot. And I used that for my pot roast. Okay. Don't tell me I mispronounced it, folks. I know I mispronounced it. I'm just my way of being funny. Anyway, have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow. Nighty night.
Thank you. Night.